So I wanted to briefly bring up this new iPhone 17 Slim speculation and whether it's going to be an Air model or an Ultra, if it's going to be ultra expensive or maybe the new version of the SE, and we're going to talk about where it's going to fit in Apple's current lineup of iPhones and exactly what to expect out of it, because I do think it's coming. It's just a matter of where Apple places it, where it prices it, and what features are going to be either omitted or added to justify whatever price point it comes out at. So let's talk about this iPhone 17 Slim or Air or Ultra, whatever you want to call it, and go down memory lane a little bit and talk about when Apple has introduced some new version of an iPhone that doesn't really correspond with their core models. Let's get into it. So for the first 5 or 6 years of the iPhone's existence, there was only one model with 2 different storage variants, or maybe 3, with a couple of different colorways, all the way from the iPhone 2G to the iPhone 5S, which is the phone that I actually have right here with me, and this is my original 5S in perfect condition. I still remember getting this wrapped at one of those kiosks right outside of the Apple store at a mall. So the purchasing decision was pretty easy and simple for the iPhone user. You either pick their color, you pick how much storage you want, and outside of that, the iPhones were exactly the same. And then Apple announced their iPhone 6 lineup, and this is the first time that Apple gave us 2 different variants. They gave us a 4.7-inch model and the 5.5-inch model, marking the first time that Apple has gone past that perfect 4-inch size in terms of diagonal space. But at the same time, they introduced the iPhone 5C, which is one of the most short-lived iPhones that we've ever seen, because they wanted to still keep it true to that 4-inch diagonal size, but make it a little bit cheaper, and it was the first inkling that we got that Apple was testing out a lower price point for a new iPhone. Apple then continued with this 2-model situation where it was a smaller version of the same phone and a larger version of that same phone up until the iPhone 10. So we had the 7 and the 8 and the 8 Plus and the 7 Plus, and all that stayed the same, and in the meantime they discontinued the 5C and then gave us the iPhone SE, which was essentially a 5S, just kind of rewrapped with a better internal chip. And to this day, the iPhone SE has still been around, albeit in a different version and look, but that's been Apple's cheapest price point to enter the iPhone market. But I do remember during that time, this is around 2017, it being kind of complicated in terms of which iPhone was for which person, because we had at that point the ultra expensive $1,000 iPhone 10, but then we also had the iPhone 8 Plus and the iPhone 8, and then we also had the iPhone SE still, so people were a little confused as to what they were getting. The iPhone X was completely different from the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and that is kind of where it's now been stemmed. Then fast forward 2 years and Apple finally got rid of the S moniker on those iPhone XS's and XS Maxes, and we got to the Pro moniker, right? So we had the normal version of an iPhone, so it was the iPhone 11 and then the cheaper little brother, which was the iPhone XR, and then we had the 11 Pro and then finally the 11 Pro Max. And that's pretty much how it's been over the last 5 or 6 years, right? We have the normal iPhone model, which is right now the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. Then we have the more expensive, more robust, more premium older brother, which is the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. And then we have that cheaper version, which is the iPhone SE, which looks nothing like the other iPhones. It just kind of looks like an older iPhone wrapped up in better internals, even though that iPhone SE hasn't been updated in a while. And that is kind of where we stand with Apple's current lineup. So now this new iPhone 17 Slim aims to kind of change that up, and it's supposed to be a different phone for a different demographic of people that want to maybe have that ultra premium feel, but not actually spend the money for it like you do with the Pro models. So the initial speculation about this iPhone 17 was that it was going to be an iPhone 17 Ultra, this ultra premium phone that sat above the Pro Max version for those people that just wanted the best build materials. They wanted to be as thin as possible, and that is what the biggest thing was. It was supposed to be an iPhone with a single camera bumper, almost like a pixel-like visor on the rear that was as slim, maybe even slimmer than the current iPad Pro, which is at 5.1 millimeters, but was going to be more expensive than that Pro Max, probably bringing better internals, a faster chipset, and then Apple would put all of their R&D efforts and work in their magic to make sure that the cooling and the internals and everything was up to spec, even in such a slim and small chassis. And then most recently, Mark Gurman did release a tweet calling this iPhone 17 the iPhone 17 Air. So it's no longer the Slim, it's no longer the Ultra, and what I want to do is talk about what the Air emblem means for Apple, because right now there's a couple of different Air named models or products in Apple's ecosystem. Of course, you have the MacBook Air, which has been around since 2008, and that was supposed to be the thinnest, at that point, lightest laptop that has ever been made, and back then in 2008, it made some crazy compromises when it comes to utility and the ports and the disk drives that it omitted compared to the rest of the competition, because in 2008, this was a laptop that only maxed out at 64 gigs of internal SSD storage, which was absolutely unheard of and very, very expensive. It also had no optical drive, which was also a thought that people were like, what is Apple doing? Nobody's gonna want this thing. Everybody needs a CD drive. And then of course, it reduced a lot of the ports, right? They got rid of the FireWire, they got rid of the Ethernet port, which are things that people had always gotten used to or they've been accustomed to. And of course, Apple's known for making these courageous kind of steps first and omitting some of the things that are supposedly the norm in that time and moment. So again, the MacBook Air at that point had made compromises, so hold on to that thought when now we talk about the iPad Air, because the iPad Air, from a price point perspective, yes, it's not the thinnest in the world, which is what we thought the Air meant, but from a price point perspective, it sits right in the middle between the amazing Pro model iPads and then the iPad 10th generation and the iPad mini. So that is what I think this iPhone 17 Air is going to be. It is going to be an ultra-thin version of the iPhone with this kind of single camera visor on the rear that's going to be making some compromises, but it's going to fit in the middle of where the iPhone sits. So we're going to have maybe the iPhone 17 lineup, the iPhone 17 Air, and then the iPhone 17 Pro. So the compromise it's going to make is, like I said, it's going to have one single camera instead of a triple or double camera array. It's probably going to have worse battery life because it's going to be ultra thin, but it will be something that's revolutionary from a thinness standpoint and probably going to be the stepping off point for what iPhones are going to look like moving forward, because as you can tell, the MacBook Air is now the end all be all in terms of look, form factor, thinness, heat dissipation, heat management, being able to fit so much in a small chassis. I mean, think about it, all the MacBook Pros now look exactly like the MacBook Air, just a little bit thicker. So that's what I think is going to happen with this new iPhone 17 Air. I think it's going to be a one-of-a-kind thing. Apple's going to be putting a lot of their, I guess, physical and hardware limitations to the test in this thing by making it ultra thin, while making these compromises like I mentioned, and it's going to fit in that middle ground from a price point perspective. So it'll probably be $1,000 or $1,100, and if you want to be a first in line to try it out, Apple will be happy to sell it to you. But if you like to have that familiar situation of something like a regular iPhone or a Pro Max iPhone, then those will still be there. But I do think eventually, once we get to the 18s and 19s and 20s, which, you know, is going to come faster than we think in 4 or 5 years, I think that's going to be the form factor. It's going to be this single visor across, similar to the Pixel phones. It's going to be ultra thin, ultra premium, and Apple's going to be able to work their magic internally to make sure that they're not making that many sacrifices with the iPhone 18, 19, and 20 lineup. So that's just my 2 cents on this thing. I love going down memory lane. I love talking about the old iPhones because I'm somebody that's owned pretty much every single iPhone, even to the iPhone 2G, all the way up now to the 15 Pro Max. There's been a couple that I've skipped here and there, but especially in the beginning, the first 6 or 7 iPhones, I owned one every single year because I just wanted to see how much better they were, and those incremental updates were much bigger back in the day versus now. It's tough to justify upgrading every year or even every 2 or 3 years. Today, most people don't upgrade unless something is either wrong with their phone or it's like a 5-6-year-old phone, because that's just how good the hardware and the software has gotten over this time. But that'll do for this video, everybody. Let me know in the comment down below what you think. Is this iPhone 17 Slim something that you would like? An ultra thin, ultra light iPhone that can do everything that the other iPhones do, just make some compromises from a battery and a power consumption perspective and things of that nature, but you'll have the latest and greatest from a hardware perspective. So let me know in the comment down below. Always curious to know, and if you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And if you guys want to watch more videos like this one, definitely click on one of these videos right here and get subscribed, because glow time is right around the corner, and I'm excited to see what Apple's going to be doing with this new iPhone 16 lineup. Peace, everybody.